Hey there, everybody. Thanks for joining me for another one-man review. Today I will be taking a look at Art Spiegelman's Breakdowns, Portrait of the Artist as a Young Fuck. This is put out by Pantheon and is a newer edition that collects his older collection of short stories pre-Mouse. Well, not pre-Mouse, but you'll see as we go through. I'm sure most people have already read this, but I've never had a copy. Found a copy cheap at Second and Charles recently. Right out the gate, Spiegelman is kind of showing that this book is going to be attentive to like production. That was something that must have been a big part of his early career, putting together the Raw magazines and all these things. I'm guessing that, I've never got to see those in person, but I'm guessing they're kind of like the type of thing I would like to do, where they're really trying to push the limits of the physical materials that things are made out of, not just the formal aspects of the comics. But you can see here he's got the CMYK set up, and then he's got all of these images, which you'll see larger. What this includes, though, is this first part, which is an autobiography of Art Spiegelman that is kind of like a forward to then the collection of short stories. So this is more recent work in front of older work. And you do just get kind of an autobiography. He's doing some fun, tricky things, like the letters at the beginning of each panel spell out portraits of an artist. They don't really... It would be more interesting to me if he used that as like a constraint and almost like a acrostic, where like here it could be like, oh, ha, I turned something into this. And here it says R and then ah, which could be like raw, pointing out the magazine. So I thought that was kind of what was going on first, that he had built in some relationship between the letter and the rest of the panel. That would be a really formally tricky thing to do. I know he likes to be a formalist. Here it's a very good cookie, but I don't know what. R too easy, TG's mom, I maybe later, twat me worry. Like it just doesn't pan out over time. So I think that was me projecting into it a little bit more, hoping for more out of Spiegelman. I'll say that I love Mouse. I think Mouse is a great book. His other thing that I have read is the In the Shadow of Two Towers, and I hated that. I thought it, and then his kind of response to the libraries taking Mouse out really turned me off too. So I'm was a little skeptical about this, but wound up really enjoying this book, and it's I think an essential piece of comics history. Very cool thing here, showing him working out the Hell Planet story that also shows up in Mouse, showing like all of the sketching he was doing, all of the play with style, all of the notes he was taking. I think especially with someone like Spiegelman, when you look at some of the work and the end product is very cartoony or like energetically kind of rough in the way that Mouse is, you would think it's happening pretty quickly, and seeing how much thought goes into these is very, very cool. Seeing how he's trying to tweak the styles, how he's trying to find the look for the story. This is very familiar to me. Like, I do a lot of this before any project because I can't stay stylistically the same. That just doesn't make sense to me. And I think it's also really good to, for any artists to see this, that these things don't just come to you. I think a lot of people think someone of Spiegelman's status, Pulitzer Prize winner, comics genius, doesn't have to struggle for this stuff, and he's showing that that's not true. Really cool little piece here where you see his first comics that he did, and this was, I don't know, he was pretty early. I think he was saying he was about 10 when he was doing this. So pretty sophisticated first comics for a kid to be doing. My one big problem that with Spiegelman that keeps coming up in all of his work, including Mouse, is there is kind of an awareness of where he thinks he sits or should sit in the canon, and like his instinct about the canon in general is sketchy to me. And then he's so like into this, I don't know, that idea of the cartoonist and all of that seems, and being an important cartoonist in that field, mattering to that field rather than art in general or something like that, seems to bog him down, and seems to bog down a lot of people of earlier generations because of the The people who had to really, really fight for comics not just being kid shit seem to not be able to let it go either now that we're past that. I think that's a problem. So he's saying here, forged in a crucible of humiliation and trauma, cartoonists are made, not born. Let it go, guys. Like, we're not all fucked up, weird nerds. Like, yeah, I got problems. Like, I have my neuroses and shit, but, like, I don't know. Like, I'm a healthy, functioning member of society that can take care of a sick person and work 2 jobs and still do comics. I'm just tired of these people who've chosen to hide in their room and then complain about that's how cartoonists are bred. If you don't like your life, get out. So anyways, at the end of all of this, you get, like, that's the autobiography, and then you have what looks like a facsimile copy of the actual breakdown. So you get a cover that's a much harder, shinier material. You get, like I said, all of the production. This just looks like a bunch of different ways that the Ruby Lith tones and stuff could have put together to make the colors on the cover. So just a lot of production experiments, basically, which obviously I really, really enjoy. This here lets you know it's a facsimile edition, and then you get to read all of the short stories, everything from Mouse till now, an anthology. Well, I guess it's not everything, but from Mouse to now, an anthology of short stories. This comes with an intro which uses images from all of the stories to come in the book. So just like the original one had an intro, and then now we have an intro to the intro. This is another one of those, like, kind of Spiegelman showing, like, he's writing his own intros and writing intros to his own intros. That stuff just gets, I don't know, it starts to smell a little funny eventually. But then you get the first version of Mouse, which is really, really cool. It's really cool to see how far the style came from here. Like, this is the much more hatchy kind of underground comics vibe influence in there. So I like to just see that as like a little 3-page story. That's cool. It started as a nugget and then he grew it. That's really cool. Really, really cool history. Some really fun formal material play here where he's using just the moire patterns of shifting the dots around. So playing with, like, the material production possibilities in comics as a way of telling stories. The problem with this kind of stuff can be, and that is just, you know, you kind of just buy into that with someone like Spiegelman. You're going to get stuff like this that is just an experiment, and it's not meant to have such a story. Like, this one is just all leading up to, like, a silly punchline in the end. And I, you know, like, to me, I enjoy seeing those things, but then they don't stick. So I'm always trying to figure out how can you do these kind of formal things, but embed them in a story that also lands. But it's nice to have people like Spiegelman out there just playing and suggesting the ideas for the rest of us to go figure out what we want to do with them. And then there's The Prisoner on the Hell Planet, which is the autobiographical story that's in Mouse of his mother killing herself. This is probably my favorite thing in the book. There's, like, this breakdown of, like, how humor works. You have Freud here running around with these dicks on his head, and they're just kind of talking about the structure of jokes. I enjoyed reading that one quite a bit. Visually, I really enjoyed this one. Don't get around much anymore. This is to be read to the accompaniment of a dripping faucet slowly, which I would never do because it would drive me crazy, but I love the idea. And this one is playing with all of, like, the gridded, abstracted kind of poetics of form stuff that I'm super into lately. Really cool to see Spiegelman playing with that. Must have been quite a while ago. Yeah, 1973. Day at the Circuits. This is the kind of, like, real comics formalisms I enjoy, and I wish we could have seen more of this kind of tricky stuff. But this is a multi-directional story. Usually I hate arrows in comics, but I really quite love this one because it's creating a choose your own way, and there's multiple ways to read through this. The first choose your own path comic I ever knew of was Jason Shiga's Meanwhile, so this is cool to see one quite earlier than that, 1975. Not as complex, but someone really contributing a cool idea to the canon. Another really fun formal idea here. We have Spiegelman's notes for the story, including his compositions for the story. And in his compositions for the story, you can also see how he's structuring the writing for the story. This is really interesting. So if you look through here, he has part 1, part 2, part 3, and then the inserts, and the inserts are A, B, C. And over here, or here, it gives you a breakdown of what is going on story-wise in each one of the parts, like the major plot, and then the inserts have their own little, this is a TV commercial, it's a title sequence, whatever. And yeah, you can see the abstract structure of the comic just in terms of how the panels are laid out here. That's all overlaid on top of the comic itself. And then right here, he even notes like that this is notes on strip. And then we start with insert C, which is woman watching TV. Or no, this is C is being hidden. And then we come to part one there. So really interesting way of showing like the whole creative process. And then there's also some very intentional, it seems, given the way the layouts are happening here. I wasn't able to put together the full picture of what he was trying to represent by giving you all that information with this one, but I think there's something about how these things are playing out against each other in time rhythmically, because you have like these 6 panels here that are subdivided into threes. So you basically have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. But these would be drawn out longer. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Something like that. That's what I see in the page. Really like that. And he's like intentionally also moving that down. Like you see that in this strip, it would have been like here, and now it moves to here, and now it moves to here. And then it like pops back up. So there's just some weird rhythmic things in that one that I like a lot and find fascinating, but I didn't know quite what to make of it. Seeing more of the like wood block or lino cut style that you see more of in his work, kind of the roughness of Mouse coming in on this dream that he had. This story, Nervous Rex, the Malpractice Suite, is a really fun like Dada surrealist game of appropriation and collage, where Spiegelman is like taking panels from, I'm assuming, some Nervous Rex cartoon or some book that he's got somewhere. It looks like maybe some Alex Raymond art. I'm not quite sure. This face isn't right for Alex Raymond, but some of this looks like maybe Raymond stuff. And then is cutting it up and putting it together and making a story out of it by adding stuff around. The story on this like didn't really grab me, but as a fun experiment, like this is definitely a way that I would enjoy working and get a kick out of. Ace Hole is a detective story, the midget detective. I wonder what Spiegelman would think about that. Is it okay to say midget detective now, Art? He's such a shining beacon of morality for the country, then judging everyone else. But midget detective, Art, midget detective. So anyways, Ace Hole, the most compelling thing about this, I think, is that he's being very clear about the different materials he's using. So Ace Hole's drawn with the brush. Greta, this character here, is drawn with a dip pen. And the Potato Head character is drawn just with like a fine liner pen. I think that's interesting to have like that material exploration. And then there's also some more like appropriation, it looks like, where he's appropriating old Winsor McCay Nemo strips. This one with the main female character is obviously referencing Picasso, and then at this point we get Picasso's Guernica here. You can see stylistically that very influenced what Spiegelman's doing in here, bringing another fine art language into comics, which is really cool. And he's also making the joke that like Guernica, this super important piece of art in art history, couldn't even be shown in a comic at that time because it wouldn't make it past the comic code of authority. He's quoting Articles 6 and 7 of the comics code and juxtaposing that against Guernica, showing that you wouldn't be able to show it because evil is triumphing over good in this scene, and it's showing excessive violence, physical agony and things like that. So it's an interesting like point that he's making, as well as like giving off his visual inspiration for some of the characters. A fun piece here in the back that looks like it's on some color. Well, I guess they just printed it in color, but it looks more like a screen print on colored paper type of vibe to it. recreating the look of an old magazine here, the East Village Other. Very, very cool piece of history. And then like some short pieces too. And this one is probably my favorite, visually favorite thing in the book. I would love to see somebody do a whole book. Actually, Max Huffman and Emil Ernst Ferris, I think is Ernest F on Instagram, are both kind of leaning into this visual style. It's cool to see Spiegelman having done it, but I'm glad to see that there's some people kind of going forward with this, because I quite like this as a cartooning approach. And Roman Murata too feels like someone who's playing with some of these ideas. So really glad I got this. Enjoyed it quite a bit more than In the Shadow of Two Towers. Obviously not as much as Mouse. But yeah, it'd be nice to see Spiegelman release comics more frequently, because he does do a lot of interesting stuff. The Eisner nominated The Strange Death of Alex Raymond by Dave Sim and myself. This is a gorgeously illustrated and designed book. Dave doing most of the illustration. Amazing compositions throughout. What Dave is doing is he's recording his obsession with the death of master cartoonist Alex Raymond behind the wheel of Stan Drake's car when they got into a car crash. The best description of the book that I've heard is that it's like understanding comics with pages like this, mixed with something like From Hell, when you get into the theories about, you know, what actually happened with the car crash. And then with Sean on production, it's just one of the most gorgeously printed books you could get a hold of.